This is extremely impressive at the top level, and it's clear that we see an elite separation of players. So we know that the tier and the skill gap is there in Hearthstone in some capacity.
Well, I'm at BlizzCon 2018 in the Hearthstone area to get the Hearthstone update from one of my favorite people to interview at the event every year, Frodan himself. How's it going, Frodan?
It's going all right. This year I dressed up as your middle school disco ball.
Okay.
As you can see with the very slowly rotating lights reflecting onto your glasses.
I've never interviewed anybody who is like literally just reflecting themselves onto me so much. So it's
I'm just a mirror. I reflect whatever you want to see in yourself.
yeah, I don't. There's a lot of things. Anyway, let's go. Let's get into it. So, what is happening behind us? What is this Hearthstone event?
So this is the Hearthstone Global Game Finals. 3 months ago, they started a 400K tournament with 48 countries. It's a different kind of event, completely different in format. All 9 classes, has like a Dota pick ban style where you ban 2, pick 2, ban 2, pick 2, and then self-ban 1.
There's a lot of picking and banning.
Yeah, so it's a lot more complex in terms of how you get to bring all 9 classes, and it's a team tournament, so you can discuss plays the entire time. And then they just play like team matches the entire way through as if you're any other team game. So there's a lot at stake in terms of money. And this year they also started a program for cheering. So there's a lot of like compendium stretch goals that people kind of built in. So there's even more money to play for now. So the teams are like super serious. So even though last year we had that invitational with the 4 teams, it was more fun and lighthearted. This year it's like, all intense and pretty serious.
Well, how is it going so far?
It's going pretty well. I would say that the 2 biggest teams in terms of the fan bases behind them are Brazil and China, and they both are through to the top 4 first in their groups, so I think that's really nice. USA just barely missed top 8, so that's kind of disappointing considering we want a hometown favorite, but overall I think people aren't disappointed in the results.
Well, stepping away from the event so far, what has Hearthstone been like this year? I haven't had a chance to talk to you in a while.
Hearthstone's gone through like a lot this year. I think one thing is that most people can immediately grab at is that the executive leadership changed a lot. Ben Brode left, and I think that kind of was like, as much as Ben Thompson and Peter Whalen, all of them put like really good effort, and and Dave Kosak, I love him, and it's just, it's not the same without
Ben Brode was the avatar kind of Hearthstone for a while.
He was larger than life. Whenever he got on stage, you just felt like compelled to hear what he had to say. And I think that presence was like really missed just because we all grew up with Ben Brode and Hearthstone. So that happened, and then a couple of other like really controversial things started happening because there's so much change of leadership and there's like change in pipelines. They announced a tournament mode that was going to be released in a beta this year at the beginning of 2018. Then they announced about September that they weren't going to do that, and that like really annoyed a lot of the competitive fan base in Hearthstone. And then you kind of like add to the fact that this expansion is apparently the one that's announced of Rastakhan's Rumble. It's like about champions fighting in an arena. It's like, wow, it's very clearly that they were planning it to release with this or some kind of capacity, but not working out, and just kind of reinforces some of those bad feelings. So even though Hearthstone, like meta-wise, has gone through a lot of good stuff this year, it's also gone through a little bit of the downturn. And as long as we kind of rebound and end the year strong, I think it's going to be okay, because that's all you want to do. You just want to trend upwards. You're just going to take the downs with the highs.
Yeah, how is I don't know, I mean, I'm sure you've been working this, but maybe, you had a little bit of insight into what the big news is here at this event, because obviously they've got Rastakhan Rumble, but I don't know if they're like talking about how they're going to maybe turn some of the stuff around for the next year.
Yeah, so, I'm under like God knows how many layers of NDA, okay. But
what have they said publicly? Do you know? Is it easy to delineate between what they've said here versus what you know?
So one thing that I do know is that they really want to change the solo adventure experience. I think Dungeon Run was like a fantastic thing last year that really helped people re-engage in the game in a different way. So apparently this Rumble Run is going to be something like that, where it's like different kind of solo adventure content. As for 2019, I know they have really big plans and changes. And I think one thing to understand is that because executive leadership changes, I believe like Chris Siggety and all of them are now going to be running Hearthstone. They have a different philosophy on how the game Hearthstone should be in the future development, but it takes a lot of time because what they're working on now is something that's really far in the future, but they're looking at the immediate impact, like, if Hamilton, Chu, and Ben Brode leave now, why haven't we seen anything change? So right now, Hearthstone's going through that very like awkward transition period that I think a lot of people just want to get past. I think people are just like, okay, this is a little bit awkward. It's kind of like the Season 2 of Mr. Robot, if you want any spoilers. Just like sets it up for something much better in the future. Yeah.
The awkward year. I like, by the way, that the lighting person has realized we're doing this, and instead of strobing us with light to get the disco ball going.
It's just this light. I think he's trolling us.
Yes, it's very thematic. They're probably trying to get us out of the shot because we're behind the caster desk. But again, we've been told we can be here, so I'm going to stick around. All right. What else is going on from? Do we know anything about what next year looks like yet from a competitive standpoint?
Well, not officially. When are you releasing this interview?
I'm releasing it later this week.
Okay. Well, very soon they're going to be talking about their plans for 2019, and I don't know if I'm allowed to even hint about it, but I do know that there's going to be some really big changes. Okay. And I think right now they're still even finalizing what they really want to do. That's why they haven't announced it at BlizzCon. And also I think they don't want to take away from the luster of like all the new content for like specific esports news. But there's definitely some big things on the horizon. Yeah. And I think one of the important things to realize is like, the Hearthstone team is like one of the better teams at like, in terms of the esports, better at listening to the community and directly immersing themselves. I haven't seen like so many of the main core team like talk to the players on a weekly basis and get their thoughts. So I'm really hopeful for 2019. I still stick to my original timeline. I made a couple predictions a few years back, Travis, around 2016. Then the year 2020, Hearthstone's going to be like awesome. Okay. And I said the reason why not 2020 and not like immediately back then was because there's so much like room to grow. There's a lot of expansions that need to come out for formats to exist, and a lot of lessons learned development-wise. And we know Blizzard likes to tweak their sweet time too to make sure everything is like polished and got that Blizzard feel. So still 2019 is coming, but when you interview me again, Travis, and we have that same conversation of like, where are you once a year backstage? So I'm gonna come meet you out front. I'll say the same thing in 2019. I'll say 2020 Hearthstone's gonna be great.
Okay, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's in store. It does sound like, for me, Hearthstone was kind of an awkward year for me. Like it was harder to kind of understand what was happening. I saw like, as you said, like last year's Temple Run. What was it called again?
Dungeon Run. Yeah.
It's like, trying to remember.
I do want to say like one thing. So this year's competitive scene was completely a big shift from last year too. Like this year, what they introduced was a tour stop system that kind of mirrors like Magic Pro Tour or the Grand Prix system, whatever you want to call it. And what ended up happening was they just had like crazy amount of events. And by doing this, they were hoping that the amount of variance for players going to certain events has been lowered, which it has. We've seen ridiculous consistency that kind of blows the mind. And some people point out like, well, if you travel to every tour stop, you're going to eventually have good results. But that's not even necessarily the case. The win rates for some of these players are like mirroring like almost like pro StarCraft levels. Like it's crazy. Some of the players who are topping out, they have like 75 to 80% win rate, and they're making top 16s at like half the events they go to. That's just really absurd. So like this is extremely impressive at the top level, and it's clear that we see an elite separation of players. So we know that the tier and the skill gap is there in Hearthstone in some capacity. And almost every player at the highest level acknowledges that this has probably been the most complex, the most skill testing part of Hearthstone in its entire history. Yeah. But then becomes the question: is it fun for them? Because the most recent expansion, Boomsday meta, hasn't really shifted too dramatically from the previous one. So it's a great meta. Just everyone's wants more and something different and a little bit tired of it. So that's where the source of complaints are right now.
Gotcha. Well, before we wrap this up, what's going on with you these days? People, there's some people here that are watching this because they're Hearthstone fans, but also Frodan fans. So how are you?
Well, I am still dressing up pretty crazy, but not as often, Travis. I try to, dabble in other forms of fashion. I was thinking about emptying out part of my closet. Maybe I should give away. Do you want one of my jackets, Travis?
That would be great. I would love. I don't know if it'll fit. I feel like it will not. We have a different frame.
You hang it up on a wall in a poster frame, like
I know.
Like a jersey.
I'm going for a mid-century modern look in my apartment, and I don't know if the. We'll talk.
I have a jacket for every look, Travis, and if you need any reference, just search me on any YouTube video. My parents still give me a lot of grief about that. But for myself, I'm still working pretty hard on Twitch. I did a recent event online called the Hearthstone Gold Rush, and it was a challenge to create a new Hearthstone account and race to 5,000 gold. And it was primarily driven around Arena because they were doing a Halloween double class or dual class Arena. So it got a lot of really good positive feedback, and I want to see if we can maybe explore different things like that in the future. And being part of Twitch allows me to do creative, really fun stuff like that. That's very different from what you normally see in other competitions and formats. So we're looking to explore more of that. So hope you guys tune in to check out much more of my Twitch Rivals work and the rest of the team.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for the interview. Anything you want to say to any of the Hearthstone and Frodan fans out there?
For all the people who stick through Hearthstone through the good times and bad, I think you guys will all be really happy with how things go in the future based on some of the things I'm hearing about. But at the same time, I think one of the most important things is to voice your opinion, and because they do read all the feedback. And I'm not what's the term? I'm not ignorant to the fact that my well-being is directly related to how well Hearthstone does. So the more you support and the more you watch and the more you tune in and stuff like that really helps me. So I'm really thankful to all the fans who've stuck with me throughout the years. It really means the world to me.
Well, thank you so much, Frodan, for the interview. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of my BlizzCon 2018 coverage right here on my YouTube channel. Well, there's a Hearthstone tavern behind me, and much like Hearthstone, there's a little bit of RNG. You randomly got this outro. Congratulations. It means that you'll lose your next turn. The point is, there's a bunch of links in the description below. You can follow me on Twitch, or you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. Any of that stuff, it super helps me. Hopefully you enjoyed that piece of BlizzCon coverage. Thanks so much for watching it, and I'll see you next time.